what's up, Nashville? This is Beau Beach with the Free Speech Podcast presented by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, your broker if you are a seller of commercial properties in Nashville or the Southeast. As always, we are going to bring you 10 stories that we think are interesting from the past 2 weeks that are interesting, informative, things that will benefit you, especially benefit you if you're trying to understand the Nashville economy, if you're an owner of commercial real estate, and some things that we just throw in there for fun. Nashville commercial real estate, business, culture, sports, and maybe some other things every once in a while that we think are interesting enough to share. I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover in today's podcast, and then we'll get into it. First, inside downtown's Nashville's newest venture, Show Pony, right? So this is a new venture downtown from Icon Entertainment and Hospitality, who owns a number of very high-profile entertainment type businesses in and around downtown. I'm going to walk you through exactly what that new venture looks like. Next, Nashville is number 2 for the most hotel room openings in 2025. I'm going to give you an update on how the hotel business is doing in Nashville. Hint, it's doing very, very well. Next, Music City is among the top 10 destinations in the U.S. I'll walk you through that. The Pinnacle music venue opens at Nashville Yards. This is actually a pretty big deal. I'm going to walk you through why that is and what you can expect from that new music venue downtown. You know, Nashville Yards is one of those game-changing real estate developments for downtown Nashville, and they built that development around this music venue. So a very, very cool place and a very kind of important place for downtown Nashville. Just opened. I'll walk you through what you can expect there. Nashville investment activity begins to rebound after a record low year, and that's commercial real estate investment activity. I'll talk to you about that rebound. Next, another indoor golf club is opening in Nashville. We've been covering a lot of these. A lot of very interesting entertainment businesses opening their doors in Nashville right now. I'll catch you up on that. Hooters dining chain soon to declare bankruptcy. I'll walk you through that, and then I'll give you kind of my opinion of why that's actually happening. You know, a lot of these businesses are failing. The stated reasons for that failure aren't exactly honest. I'm going to break down for you why Hooters has failed. A boutique country club catering to families is opening in Dallas, right? So this isn't a Nashville story. But I love this idea of a boutique country club that caters to families, right? It's not golf centered, but it gives you kind of that exclusive atmosphere to spend time in as a family. I think it's a concept that would do well in Williamson County where I live. And I just thought it was interesting enough to share. You know, whether the economics of this project make any sense, I'll leave up to you. But in concept, I don't know if I want to be the owner of it, but I think I might want to be a customer, right? Next, we're going to give you a Nashville economic update. And last, DOGE has now canceled 1 in 10 active federal commercial real estate leases. This is having an effect on Middle Tennessee. 1 in 10 active federal commercial leases terminated by DOGE. I'll keep you up to date on that. So let's get into it. Inside downtown Nashville's newest venue called Show Pony. Icon Entertainment and Hospitality is putting on a show with its latest venture. Experiential venue and bar, Show Pony, opened at the end of January, bringing new life to 121 3rd Avenue South, which was last home to Johnny Cash's Bar and Barbecue. You know, I'd never made it to Johnny Cash's Bar and Barbecue. You know, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but 90% of the traffic in downtown Nashville is tourism traffic. So, you know, I don't feel a real pull to get down there. So I don't know if it's better or worse than what was there before, but it's certainly creative. And I think that's kind of what Icon is known for, very creative, unique uses. The space features a light-up dance floor, stage, ample seating, and nostalgic carnival decor. I like the idea of that. Nostalgic carnival decor. In addition to live music, Show Pony guests will get to participate in friendly competition, from racing horses to hula hooping. The Nashville Cabaret's burlesque performance will also be regularly held at Show Pony starting in March. A circus-inspired food menu features funnel cakes, foot-long corn dogs, sliders, and more, which is very ambitious. Icon is also working on its second East Nashville bar and restaurant to be called the Greenwood. So a circus-inspired, experiential new concept in downtown Nashville. And to put in perspective for you, the other concepts brought to Nashville by this same group, I'll give you a few on the list here. The Johnny Cash Museum, the Patsy Cline Museum, Nudi's Honky Tonk, Skull's Rainbow Room, House of Cards, which is new and pretty awesome, Sinatra Bar and Lounge, Southern Turf Lofts, Southern Turf Club, Schulman's Neighborhood Bar, and Tanya Tucker's Tequila Cantina. So these guys are the real deal. They invest a lot of cash to bring interesting new concepts, mostly to downtown Nashville, but they are all over Middle Tennessee at this point. So if you're someone, maybe you don't have as many kids as me, I don't know. Maybe you've got all kinds of free time, which I don't have, and you like to go spend time around really drunk tourists, I think you should go check out Show Pony. I mean, the circus-themed cuisine and nostalgic decor, I think sounds very interesting. I think it's worth a visit if you're a person that's willing and able. I currently am not, so please let me know how it goes. Nashville is number 2 for the most hotel room openings in 2025. Nashville is second only to New York City in number of hotel rooms set to open in 2025, which isn't real fair because New York City is a much more densely populated place. So we're fighting way above our weight class, if you ask me. Over the last decade, Nashville has grown its hotel room supply by 52%, opening 20,000 new rooms. Quote, Nashville has been a developer and investor darling for quite a while now, going all the way back to the It City comment from 12 years ago. The Nashville hotel industry has sustained a very healthy demand from the three-legged stool that supports the hotel industry. That three-legged stool is made up of corporate demand, leisure demand, and group demand. It's not obvious to me the difference between corporate demand and group demand. Is group demand maybe folks coming to town to watch a Titans game? Perhaps that's it. Investors are interested in markets that have sustained demand environments, right? And that's why you're seeing so many new hotel rooms open in Nashville. We have those sustained demand environments. New York City ranked number 1 with 5,700 rooms set to open. San Diego was third with 2,800, Dallas fourth with 2,700, and Phoenix fifth with about 2,500. Of the 2,900 rooms set to open in Nashville this year, most of them fall in the upper mid-scale and upper scale classes. These include the Four Seasons Hotel Nashville, Soho House Nashville, and One Hotel Nashville. The luxury boom has even extended to Franklin with the opening of a 325-acre working farm and resort called South Hall Farm and Inn, which is actually a very interesting little spot. I bought some property very near here. I'm constructing a gym and sports complex for my family, and it's right by the South Hall Farm and Inn. You know, you drive by it, it doesn't look like much, right? Because they want it to blend into the countryside and be natural. But it's very, very expensive. And I understand it's very kind of relaxing. It's one of those places that maybe parents go to rejuvenate, sleep, I don't think it's a party spot like you can expect downtown. I think it's more of a chill spot, where you can kind of unwind and replenish. That's what you can expect at South Hall Farm and Inn, but I've heard only good things about it. There are currently 4,293 rooms in construction, 6,392 rooms in final planning, and over 11,000 rooms in the planning stages in Nashville. Specifically, there are 38 hotels, either planned or in construction, near the downtown core. 38 hotels planned or in construction downtown Nashville. So, if you were at all wondering how the tourism business is doing and how the hotel business is doing, it is doing better than ever. Next, Music City is among the top 10 destinations in the U.S. This is for tourism. New York City, okay, we lost to New York City again. New York City took the top spot. Oahu, Las Vegas, Florida Keys, and New Orleans round out the top 5 respectively. So we're at number 6 on this list. New York City is at the top. How do you say New Orleans? I had a buddy back in grad school that was from New Orleans, and back then I said it was New Orleans, right? And he just thought I was the most ridiculous person, and it took me a long time to really change how I said New Orleans. And he almost says it's like it's one word, right? New Orleans. But New Orleans is how I have agreed to say it going forward. Whatever you do, do not say New Orleans. People are going to think you're a fool. Nashville's growing tourism industry has become a pillar of the city's economy. In 2023, tourism generated a record $10.6 billion in visitor spending, with 16.8 million people visiting Music City. Nashville is second only to New York City in number of hotel rooms set to open 2025, which we just covered. The city's draw, of course, continues to be music. Next, I think some folks in Nashville are kind of sleeping on the significance of this new music venue called the Pinnacle. They're calling it the Pinnacle because it is sponsored by Pinnacle Bank. So that's where the name comes from. But don't get distracted by the name, because the concept itself is very, very cool. And there's a lot that could be said about this. We're going to keep it pretty simple. The Pinnacle is officially open at Nashville Yards, the 4,500 capacity venue, which is a good kind of in-between amount. I'm not a big fan of these huge shows where you've got tens of thousands of people there. It's just not my style. But the small shows that you'd really like, it's hard to get good talent it's hard for those small shows to pencil out for the artists you'd actually like to see. So I actually think 4,500 seats is probably a nice size for a lot of different shows. This is a partnership between entertainment giant AEG and developer Southwest Value Partners. It anchors the 19-acre Nashville Yards campus, a project that's been in the works for a decade. Quote, "We have coming online now concurrently at Nashville Yards 4.2 million square feet of Class A plus real estate." Bold to put a plus in front of that A. We've got this Pinnacle Tower that's coming in on the west side. We've got 2 residential towers. We've got the CAA building. If you look at the architecture and the aesthetics, I think you'll appreciate that it's some of the finest, most well thought out design work really anywhere. Now, speaking about the greater development, he says, it dances around the Pinnacle, this venue that we've designated as really the heartbeat of Nashville Yards. The Pinnacle manages to feel nostalgic, yet modern at the same time. Its marquee box office, and signage mimicking those of an old school theater, while its amenities, lighting, and sound capabilities are definitely of the future. Its concourses, artist spaces, bathrooms, and hallways are filled with murals, installations, and wallpaper from 32 local Nashville artists. making the 125,000 square foot space feel like a gallery. Inside the venue, a 40 by 80 Gallagher stage sits at the front of the room. Reserved seating rims the balcony and will have QR codes to have drinks brought to the seats. A 400 capacity rooftop with its own bar and booth seating will be used for private events and artist parties. Plus, the venue has access to 7,000 parking spaces. Pinnacle Financial Partners announced its sponsorship of the venue last January and will soon open their new headquarters at Nashville Yards. Several restaurants are slated to open at Nashville Yards this year, including Sweet Paris Creperie and Cafe, Shipley Donuts, The Wine Bar, Earl's Nashville, Culacino, Foca de Chao, and Ocean Prime. And I will tell you one of the big takeaways I took from this is this idea that QR codes to deliver food and drinks to seats is really the ultimate luxury amenity, both for concerts and sporting events. You know, someone tell Nashville SC that the technology exists where we can order food on the app and you bring it to me. Instead of me having to walk 3 blocks, stand in line, miss the game, right? All of that stuff, I hate doing that stuff. If I could just simply order what I want from my phone and you deliver it to us at our seats, the amount of food and beverage that would be ordered, I think would double or triple. You'd have a much better experience. I love this idea of having food and drinks delivered to your seats when you're at one of these big sporting events or concerts. That would absolutely crush. I'm all in on that idea. I think it's wonderful. Tell Nashville SC, if Nashville SC brings that to their stadium, I might become a season ticket holder again. We sat out last year, and it was very opportune timing because the team sucked last year. They really had a bad year. We didn't make it to a single game. The years prior, we were season ticket holders, so we timed that right. But I'm open-minded to coming back if you make the experience more enjoyable for me as the father of 4 children and trying to keep them all fed and comfortable. Let's keep moving. Nashville commercial real estate investment activity begins to rebound after a record low year. Nashville investment activity took a huge dive in 2023. So we're looking back to 2023 now. Now sales are slowly but surely beginning to pick back up. Nashville investment activity rebounded in 2024 across nearly every property sector. With the election now over and more comfort sensed around the high interest rate environment, I would argue with that. I don't think there's a whole lot of comfort around the high interest rate environment. In fact, I think there's actually interest rate fatigue in our market right now. But nevertheless, that's the story that's being told here. The upward trajectory is expected to continue in 2025. Office, industrial, and retail investment activity all saw increases in total sales volume in 2024. Industrial led the pack with 64% increase in sales volume from 23 to 24, followed by retail at 60% and office at just 17%. Apartments were the only market to experience a cool down in sales volume in 2024, falling by 24% compared to the previous year. Though the pickup in activity is good news for the local real estate market, total sales volume across every sector is significantly lower than the record highs seen in 2022. So we set record highs in 2022 and we took a huge dive in 2023. And the argument now is that we're kind of creeping up and we're on an upward trend through 2024 and now through 2025. The biggest thing that would move the market would be signaling that interest rate cuts are ahead. Interest rates are really causing problems in our business right now. I'd love to see some movement on interest rates. Elevated rates have impacted transaction activity. Yeah, no kidding. In 2023, Nashville saw its lowest number of commercial real estate closings in more than a decade. As sales volume ticks back up from the lows witnessed in 2023, investment pricing continues to reset. Even so, pricing in all sectors remains above pre-pandemic levels, meaning 2019. So what they're saying here is, as the sale volume picks back up, more and more properties are selling. There's been a little bit of pullback on pricing, right? There's been a kind of a disconnect in the market between what real values are between buyers and sellers. There's been a little bit of a pullback in certain sectors and certain locations, but nowhere near falling to where we were in 2019. As I mentioned, I really think there's some interest rate fatigue in our market right now. I think a lot of folks locked in 7% loans thinking that they could refinance relatively soon. Now that it's unclear when one will be able to refinance, I think people are less and less likely to lock in those 7% rates. Historically, 7% really isn't that bad. But when you get used to those low rates and a lot of the property's values have been set in that low rate environment, it's difficult to make deals work. It's difficult to qualify for the loans themselves. The banks, the lenders have really pulled back on who they will lend to. So even if you're willing to pay that 7% interest rate to take down that property, to purchase that property, lenders the last couple of years have been very, very difficult to deal with. And if you aren't really, really solid, if you don't have a really solid balance sheet, it's very difficult to borrow money in our marketplace today, even if you are willing to pay that 7% rate. So I do think as soon as these rates start to lower, even if it's just a little bit, but there's an expectation that they're going to go lower in the future, I think things really pick back up again. Maybe pricing picks back up, and I think we're going to see sales volume go up pretty substantially. So the two things I kind of look for that are going to be a big positive shift in our commercial real estate market are obviously, like I just mentioned, interest rates ticking down, but also at the federal level, changing the regulations that these lenders have to play by. Many of these lenders argue that their hands are kind of tied behind their backs because of federal regulation. They like to lend more money than they are, but they simply can't and still comply with those federal regulations. I would sure think that the Trump administration is going to take a hard look at that and untie the hands of these lenders so that they can more actively lend money to those folks that they think will repay those loans. So those are the two things I'm looking for, and I'm hoping they're going to happen sooner than later. We'll see. Another indoor golf club is opening in Nashville. Nashville's first 5-iron golf club franchise is opening at 202 21st Avenue South inside the Ayrton. What a terrible name. Who picks these names? Ayrton Midtown this summer. The space was last home to restaurant and bar Nada and the Ainsworth. This space is 14,500 square feet and features 2 bars, a full kitchen, 11 golf simulators, and other games including augmented reality darts and duck pin bowling. Okay? As much as I love to see these creative uses entering our market, a lot of these uses I think, golly, from a profitability standpoint, is this going to work? I mean, the rent, the overhead on 15,000 square feet in this location is going to be substantial before you even talk about the payroll required. And I guess I just don't know enough golfers that are signing up for these kind of expenses. This is one of those situations where I'm hope to be proven wrong. I hope there's golfers out there that are just dying to get into a golf simulator and whack some imaginary balls. But it's just it seems real risky to me. Maybe they're real tuned into the golf business and they see it differently, but it seems real risky to me. Each simulator is loaded with 93 championship courses to play, such as Pebble Beach, Bethpage Black, and Pinehurst. Players can also play games like Closest to the Pin, Longest Drive, and Breaking Windows. Each 5-iron golf also has an in-house golf pro and offers private lessons along with weekly golf leagues. In addition to simulators, the facility has a full-service bar and restaurant. Each bay has an attendant, and simulators can be rented out to watch sporting events. Memberships, which have not yet been set for the Nashville store, typically range from $125 to $145 per month, but are not required to play. The targeting opening date of June 15th. Each 5-iron golf store costs about $2 million to open. So $2 million to open. Rent on 15,000 square feet in a very expensive location, plus payroll. You've got to really kick butt to recoup all of those expenses after paying that relatively high overhead. The same group opened the Louisville 5-iron golf franchise in May. Founded in 2017, 5-iron golf has more than 30 locations across the U.S. Nashville has seen interest from several indoor golf clubs recently, including multiple locations of the Hideout Golf Club and Atlanta-based In-Town Golf Club. Many golf ventures are also in development, including Tiger Woods' Pop Stroke and the Putting Zone. All of those concepts we've talked to you about on this podcast before. So the real question is, as I read this, I'm probably not a client here. I like the concept. I don't golf. I just don't have the time. No one ever taught me to golf, so I suck. So I really have to commit some real time to figuring it out to be able to enjoy it, and it's just not practical in my life. But in concept, I like it. The question is, will the profits be great enough to justify a $2 million upfront investment, right? So you're investing $2 million into a space that you do not own, that you are simply leasing from a landlord. That $2 million has no residual value. You put it all in that space that you don't open. If it doesn't go well, that $2 million is lost. So not only do you have to, on a monthly basis, cover your rent, cover your payroll, cover all the other overhead items, that profit that's left has to chip away at that $2 million that was invested up front before you can really churn a true profit, right? So you've got to recoup that $2 million before you're really truly profitable. You've got to get your money back. And these concepts that have high overhead and a high upfront cost to get open, boy, oh boy, things really have to go well for those concepts to work. And I'm hoping that's the case here. And if not, I'm hoping the guys that are doing this concept just are independently wealthy and they can afford to lose it, because that is an uphill battle. I would be super stressed out having to pull that off. But we wish them well as all the other in-town golf clubs and new putting venues. Very, very cool for us. I'm not sure how well it's going to play out for these new owners, but we're certainly rooting for them. The Hooters dining chain will soon go bankrupt. Atlanta-based Hooters has engaged a law firm to assist with a potential Chapter 11 filing for reorganization that would take place within the next couple months. Hooters is an operator of 300 U.S. restaurants. Restaurant chains and regional franchises filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection during the past year have included Red Lobster, Buca de Beppo, Rubio's Coastal Grill, while those and other chains have also cut jobs and closed locations. Hooters last June abruptly closed about 40 underperforming restaurants across several states. Hooters has struggled to pay suppliers on time during the past 12 months. That said, Hooters has made proactive closures and diversified revenue by launching branded frozen foods in grocery stores and expanding its restaurants into international markets. Now let me tell you what actually happened to Hooters here. Hooters caved to the woke mob. They no longer only hire attractive women with Hooters. So the whole concept, the whole brand was, hey, come eat here. You're going to be served by an attractive young lady with Hooters. And then we've got some wings that we think are pretty good too. But if you take out the attractive young lady with Hooters, you really don't have anything remarkable at all to offer guests. And that's exactly what happened here. They got pressure that, hey, you can't only hire beautiful women. We need you to hire men. We need you to hire ugly women. We need you to hire old women. So they went to like a normal restaurant operating procedure where you're just hiring anybody that you wanted. And that is the reason Hooters is going out of business, folks. You aren't going to read that in any of these articles because it's inappropriate to say, right? But that is the reality of the situation. So if you're a fan of Hooters wings, supposedly Hooters has good wings. I was a wing aficionado as a younger man before I had all of our kids. We'd go everywhere and try to figure out who had the best wings. I recall going to Hooters once to try the wings, and I'm not even making a joke. I actually went for the wings. I thought they were okay. But for some reason, people think their wings are real special. If you're one of those people, go get them while you still can, because Hooters will not be around for much longer. All right, now here's an interesting story. It's not Nashville based, but I like the concept, right? Which is the boutique country club that has nothing to do with golf and caters to families. Maybe I think this is interesting because I'm a family man and I don't golf, and I like the exclusivity of a country club. I like that idea. So maybe it's just interesting to me because it kind of touches all of those notes for me. Nevertheless, this is another business. We're going to talk about the financials of it. This is another business that I'd be scared to death to get into. I'd be a customer, but I don't think I'd want to own it. So let's get into it. 2 Dallas entrepreneurs have closed on a deal to buy an aging medical office building, making way for what they're calling a boutique country club catering to families. Rather than featuring an 18-hole golf course or tennis courts, they plan to create an oasis close to their homes in East Dallas that offers families a place of respite without the pricey membership dues. They're transforming the 1960s vintage medical office building on a 3.65-acre tract into a space for families. The project's total cost is expected to be, get this, $35 million. The building they're buying for $2 million. Then they're investing $33 million more. So let's get through this and I'll give you my thoughts on that. Reimagining the country club by designing spaces geared towards activities for children ages 12 and under, with separate areas for different ages, from nursery for small infants to a playroom to a 6,000 square foot resort style pool with an oasis-like feel meant to revive parents. These guys thought there was a need for a more attainable club experience, meaning less costly club experience. Would-be members see an advantage to going to the club to work rather than the office. So one of their pitches is come and work from the club rather than going to your office. The median initiation fee in clubs with golf, so the standard country club that you and I all think of when we say country clubs, the median initiation fee, the entry fee, is now $50,000 just to become a member, with many of those clubs then charging a monthly fee above $1,000. So we're talking about real money here to be a member of these country clubs, which is why it doesn't work unless you actually like to golf, right? And if you're not a golf person, these numbers don't work. The value you get just to being a member of kind of this inclusive club where you get to interact with like-minded people, that's what interests me. But no way am I paying $50,000 to interact with like-minded people in kind of a hoity-toity setting. It doesn't work without golf. These guys are seeking to break with tradition by offering a more attainable club. They are planning to ask for an initiation fee of about $9,000 and a monthly membership dues expected to hover around $400. So that's what makes it more attainable, right? $9,000 to get in, $400 a month. We believe that clubs are severely lacking indoor play space, and modern parents want something different. They want to make sure their kids are well taken care of with classes and options they like. That allows parents to relax because they know their kids are having a good time. The new club is designed to have 18,000 square feet of dedicated space within the building geared specifically for the children, with a nursery and play areas designed for so-called littles, or children between 18 months and 5 years old, to bigs, or children between 6 and 12 years old. They're planning to replace an aging surface parking lot with a 6,000 square foot resort style pool and a 6,000 square foot green area designed for sports, games, and inflatables. I get both of those. Those are both great ideas. The property will also include a 4,500 square foot custom built outdoor playground that will be shaded for children. They have about 35 to 40 investors committing to the club development, with the firm expecting to have 60 founding investors before the club opens. So they're not putting all their own money down. They're raising it from a group of investors. It really resonates with families who care about what their kids are doing after school and are looking to make lifestyle choices that are best for their children. I like it. I like it all. It makes me think of Lifetime. Lifetime is similar. It's just a lot less exclusive. It doesn't have that initiation fee. Lifetime is much more attainable than what you're seeing here. And that's why Lifetime is crazy packed all the time too. But we're talking about $35 million upfront investment, right? And as you spend that $2 million to buy the property and $33 million to improve it, those improvements are going to have very little residual value. So again, if this concept fails, even if they own the property, right? This is a little bit different than the golf concept. The golf concept are tenants. So they're improving someone else's property. They own this property, they're improving their own property. The problem is their improvements probably are not going to have value to the next guy. If this concept doesn't work and they have to resell this property, they are not going to recoup anywhere close to the amount of money they invested in this property. So all of those improvements are going to have very little residual value from a real estate investment perspective. So there's really a lot of money at risk here. And when you're putting $35 million into a business up front, you've really got to have a cash cow of a business to get that $35 million back and then start making real profits. So for this to work, they really have to have a cash cow of a business on their hands. Again, not sure I'm the guy for a business like that. High overhead, high upfront investment, a lot of risk, very little residual value in the assets of the business. These guys got big kahunas, bigger than mine. And that's why they're probably got more money than I do. But nevertheless, great idea. Would love to see something like that come to Williamson County. And if it does, I'll take a hard look at it becoming a member. But the economics that are described there are scary for me. Now, we've got two more stories, and they're very short in nature, so don't let me lose you. I'm going to give you a very quick Nashville economic update. It touches upon some federal ideas, but also the local economy. And then we'll talk about DOGE canceling 1 in 10 active federal commercial real estate leases and how I knew that was happening and how we might be involved. So, Nashville economic update. This is provided by Fifth Third Private Bank. People are moving here. When you get people moving here, you have a natural tailwind to economic growth. And that is going to set Nashville and Tennessee apart from neighboring peers that don't have that demographic tail. And I've always said that. I've always said, hey, if you're a commercial real estate investor, the safest place to put your money is a market that is growing. You have much more room for error in a market that's growing. If you are buying into a market that is on a downward trend, good luck making money. You're going to really have to thread the needle. If you buy into a market like, for example, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is like one of those markets that never goes up much, never goes down much, it's just real steady. It's difficult. You can make money in those markets, but it's more difficult. It's much, much easier to make money as an investor investing in areas that are growing in population, which is why Nashville is booming the way it is. The economy in 2025 is really on solid footing. The biggest driver of the economy is consumer spending driven by jobs. Unemployment rate is lower than 90% of the rating since World War II. That is the easiest, quickest measure of saying that people that want jobs have jobs. When you have a strong jobs picture, little corporate debt relative to history, little consumer debt relative to history, you've just got to watch to see how those consumer spending trends materialize. And as long as we're adding to payrolls nationally, the economy is going to do well in 2025. Nashville is in a very enviable space. Economists like to talk about demographics being destiny. The best way to grow your economy is to grow your labor force and then grow the productivity of that labor force. So how do you grow your labor force? You get people to move here. Tennessee in 2024 had the 5th most interstate migration in the United States. Now the question asks, and this will finish this story up. What major changes in the regulatory environment should we expect to see under Trump's administration? Now here's the answer. The regulatory environment will be an unequivocal positive for the economy. This administration is talking about lowering regulations in energy and financial services, which I just mentioned, right? That's untying the hands of lenders to lend money the way they feel like lending it, not obsessing about complying with federal regulation. They're also lowering regulations in some areas of tech, and they're talking about lowering antitrust legislation. As an economist, you want the government to get out of the way and let the invisible hand of capitalism move scarce resources into productive uses. Amen to that. I wish more people thought as clearly as my man is presenting it here. Get the government out of the way. Get people that have capital. Get people that have capital and let them get that capital into the hands of growing businesses. When you lower the regulations and the red tape of moving capital around, you usually see economic growth that exceeds normal averages, right? So if you can just get the government out of the way, if you can get the government to stop spending so much money, which is fueling inflation, and then get them out of the way in terms of regulations and red tape, the economy is going to take off. I hope they can make this happen sooner than later, but it is going to happen. Now, speaking about the government spending less money, and speaking about the major cause of inflation being government spending, DOGE has now canceled 1 in 10 active federal commercial real estate leases. How does that work? How do you just cancel leases? Well, I'll tell you, these government leases, they'll have a period that's hard, right? Whereby they don't have any termination options. But past a certain date, it'll be a soft term, which just means that the tenant, the government, has the right to terminate the lease with, I think it's about 120 days notice to the landlord, right? So that's what's happening here. You've got a lot of these leases that are in this soft period, and they've got the right to terminate them. So that's the path of least resistance for DOGE. So I'm rooting for DOGE, but I'm telling you, they didn't really look at these locations and try to determine if they were useful or they were worth it. They just said, oh, here's all of the leases that we have a termination option on, and they're terminating them all. Okay? Like it or not, that's what's happening. The fast-changing nature of the initiative shows how the administration is pushing to cut expenses and release more federal agencies from rental agreements. 748 lease terminations totaling roughly 9.6 million square feet and about 660 million in lease savings. DOGE has initially been targeting primarily federal commercial real estate leases that have reached their lease termination rights date, which we just talked about. The point when the federal government has the right to end the lease agreement. The remaining leases terminated averaged almost 13,000 square feet per lease. So we're talking about big spaces, big important leases for these commercial property owners. And they had an average lease expiration date of November 2027. So these landlords who are happily collecting this rent every month, they expect to collect it for another 2.5 years on their 13,000 square foot tenant, which is a huge tenant. Huge. Anchor tenant. We're talking about anchor tenants. You're 13,000 square feet. You're effectively an anchor tenant. So your anchor tenant paying probably more rent in the building than any other tenant. You're expecting to receive that for another 2.5 years. All of a sudden you get a 120-day notice that they're leaving. That hurts a lot. And I will tell you that we're in discussions with a gentleman who's been affected in this very way. And he has a single tenant building that's fully occupied by the federal government. And we're working right now to bring that property to the market to sell. So rather than try to re-tenant it, we're just saying, okay, the federal government's moving out. We're going to list this property, sell it to a new owner occupant. We're done. The average lease DOGE has said it terminated had been in place for more than 10 years. So these are leases that have been around forever, which is kind of the government way, right? You know, the government is good at growing. It's not very good at contracting, right? So once you start spending money, you kind of get spent in perpetuity. No one ever really pulls back on the spending. So these leases have been in place for on average 10 years already, with an average of 2.5 years left. So the moral to this story is, while this is good for the taxpayer, individually, these property owners, most of them are going to be more institutional in nature. They're not going to be mom and pop owners for the most part. They've got some problems on their hands. This is going to really blow a hole in their rent roll. This is really going to affect their ability to refinance those properties if they've got their loans turning over. You know, backfilling 13,000 square feet of office space that was formerly occupied by the government. You know, usually government spaces aren't real nice. You know, they're really pretty utilitarian. They get worn down. They're not updated very often. So it's not real nice second generation space. So now we're talking about all that loss of income, that inability to refinance. Plus, you're probably going to have to do a pretty thorough renovation of those spaces to attract the next tenant, which is another big upfront cost that could be up to, you know, at least $100 a square foot, depending on how far they have to take it. So I personally know of 5 different properties in Middle Tennessee that are being affected by these federal government lease terminations. So it is happening local to home. You know, of those 5 properties, 3 of them are institutionally owned, 2 of them are more mom and pop owned. So the institutions will figure it out. It's the mom and pop owners that are going to have some hard decisions to make. So I do feel bad for them. They thought they had, you know, the best of the best tenant, the federal government. They always pay. They never move out. All of a sudden, it's over. You know, your cash flow is over. Your ability to refinance is over. That's a tough spot to be in. But for the taxpayer, it's something that needs to be done. You know, the federal government is far, far too big. You know, and the costs and the benefits do not weigh out. It would be in all of our best interest to have a much, much smaller, more efficient, and less involved federal government. You know, that is really my dream. It always has been. I don't know if I ever realized it was actually going to happen in practice, but here it is. It's happening in real life, and I think it's truly a blessing. So that is the end of our podcast today. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to all of our clients and prospective clients that listen today. We appreciate you. As always, this was brought to you by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage, your broker if you are a seller of commercial real estate in Nashville or the Southeast. If there's anything that we can do for you, please reach out. We'd be happy to help, and we'll talk to you next time.